They say 5 Russian prisoners stayed awake for 15 days straight, and by the end, they tore themselves apart, one even smiling with torn vocal cords as he whispered, "I am the madness that lives within." Chilling, right? That's the infamous Russian sleep experiment, a story that has been haunting internet forums and creepy YouTube videos for years. But here's the twist. It never actually happened. Still, there's something even scarier than the story itself, because while the Russian sleep experiment is fiction, the science behind it is very real, and it reveals something shocking about what happens to the human brain without sleep. Let's break it down. First, a quick recap of the myth. The Russian sleep experiment is a creepypasta, that internet speak for a horror story that spreads like wildfire. In the tale, Soviet researchers in the 1940s lock 5 political prisoners inside a sealed chamber, pumping it full of an experimental gas that keeps them awake. At first, it's all fine, but after several days without sleep, things spiral into insanity. The test subjects begin to hallucinate, scream uncontrollably, and eventually mutilate themselves and each other. When the chamber is finally opened, they've turned into terrifying, flesh-ripping monsters, driven by a primal urge to stay awake at any cost. Creepy? Absolutely. But true? Not even close. Still, that hasn't stopped millions from believing it. Some people swear it's buried Soviet history. Others claim it's part of secret government research. But the reality is, the story was written by a user named Orange Soda in 2010 as pure fiction. But here's where it gets weird. Because even though the Russian sleep experiment isn't real, the effects of sleep deprivation it describes, those are terrifyingly accurate. Sleep isn't just rest time. It's essential maintenance for your brain. Without it, your mind starts to break, literally. Let's look at some real-life examples. In 1964, a 17-year-old high school student named Randy Gardner stayed awake for 11 days as part of a science fair project. No drugs, no gas, just pure willpower. By day 3, he had trouble focusing. By day 5, he became paranoid and began hallucinating. At one point, he thought he was an NFL player. He saw things that weren't there. He became emotionally unstable. And this was in a controlled environment with doctors monitoring him around the clock. Imagine being locked in a sealed room with no windows, no sleep, and no sense of time. It wouldn't take long for your mind to lose its grip on reality. In fact, sleep deprivation is so powerful that it's been used as a form of torture. Multiple governments, including the US, have used it during interrogations. Why? Because after enough time awake, the brain becomes too disoriented to resist or lie effectively. But the real kicker? You don't need 15 days to go insane. Just 48 to 72 hours without sleep can trigger psychosis-like symptoms. Some people experience micro-sleeps, tiny blackouts where the brain shuts off for seconds, even with eyes open. Others see shadowy figures, hear voices, start to believe impossible things. In short, sleep is non-negotiable, and science proves that going without it breaks us faster than most physical deprivation. Now back to the story. Why did the Russian sleep experiment resonate so deeply? Because in a strange way, it speaks to a fear we all carry, the fear of losing control. The idea that if we tamper with the mind too much, if we poke the wrong part of human nature, something dark and unstoppable might surface. And while the tale itself is fiction, the anxiety it taps into is very real. Consider this. In lab studies, rats that are kept awake long enough die, not from exhaustion, but from immune failure, body temperature issues, and breakdown of essential biological processes. Their bodies literally unravel, and humans? We're not that different. Long-term sleep deprivation has been linked to heart disease, diabetes, depression, even early death. It's not just about feeling tired, it's about survival. So no, the Russian government didn't create gas that turns men into monsters. But we don't need to invent a horror story. Our own biology is scary enough. Think about this the next time you pull an all-nighter or binge watch until 4 a.m. You are not just cutting sleep. You're slowly unraveling your body's ability to function. And if the sleep doesn't kill you, the delusions might get there first. The scariest part of the Russian sleep experiment isn't that it happened. It's that if you tweak just a few details, it almost could. What if a real government did try pushing the boundaries of sleep science for military gain? What if they already have? Here's the lingering truth. We think of sleep as optional, something we sacrifice for work, for fun, for productivity. But sleep isn't a luxury. It's the lock that keeps the door to madness closed. And once that lock breaks, there's no gas chamber needed. If this blew your mind or made you want to take a nap, hit subscribe for more strange science, forgotten history, and brain-bending facts. And let me know in the comments, what's the longest you've ever stayed awake? And what did it do to your mind?